If you are tired of being a victim to the same face syndrome and you want to create more dynamic characters like this, then stick around to the end. Welcome back to the place for artists, guys, where we push watercolors to new limits. If you're anything like me, you're completely tired of drawing that same face on different characters. Today we are focusing on the 6 main face shapes, which will be triangle, round, oval, square, diamond, and heart shape. So let's get started. So the number 1 rule that we're starting with is always start with this shape. For me and doing triangle, so when I started this drawing, I drew an upside down triangle, and then I drew a circle to kind of place out where the head should go. I also make sure I took note of the overall shape into the design. And what I mean is I made sure that there was a lot more angles to her rather than rounded shapes because her shape is triangle. Once you get the base design down, you should take a step back to ensure that your shape is still there. You can always push certain parts of the head to fit that design. So I chose a sharp jaw, angled eyes, and the hair to be more wide at the top to create an overall triangle shape. So the second rule is to consider the overall face proportions with the shape. What I mean by this is ovals are elongated, so I elongated her face. I gave her a larger forehead and a much more rounded chin. Her jaw kind of comes down pretty low, almost to where her lips start instead of closer up to the ears. I did this on purpose because I wanted her face to seem really long. Some of the things that I did to design this character is I incorporated big round hoop earrings. I gave her much more full lips to kind of show that she is a bit more rounded. And I gave her larger, round, soft eyes. Do something different than me. You could make the lips smaller and space out the proportions to make the face seem like it has a lot of real estate. I didn't want to do that, but that's an example of how you incorporate the overall face proportions to the shape. So my third rule is to add contrasting shapes to balance out the design. So for this shape, it's a diamond. So I wanted to make sure that her chin was a little more pointed. I wanted her cheekbones to be the widest part of her face. Sadly, I made her head a little too big for this small piece of paper, so you can't really see it, but imagine that her head is more shaped like the triangle. It's gonna round off exactly over the ears to a point. But since I did draw her face a little too large and I couldn't really show off the top of the head, I incorporated a middle part. This brings the hair that's rounded to a point, then it kind of comes down and it frames the cheekbones, which comes back down to a point at the chin. Since her design can be a little more dynamic, I chose circle earrings and plump, defined lips. I gave her very soft, round hair, and I also gave her much softer, round eyes. These are some of the things that you can play with in terms of adding contrasting shapes to balance out your design. Now on to my favorite design of all, the square shape. My number 4 rule is to design features around the overall shape. Now, what I mean by this is for a square, I purposely did not give her a round top or a wider, longer chin. I wanted her face to seem very square. And on top of that, I also gave her a more diamond shape eye, but you can always pick any eye shape you want. But for me personally, I like to change up these certain features to match different faces. One thing that really made her seem like a square face was I shortened her jaw and made her chin slightly flat, and then I gave her a comb over. So a good thing you can do with comb over styles is you can really use the hairline to your advantage. I gave her a very square hairline and a blunt bob, so it kind of just, when you look at her, she looks like a square. I also incorporated some sharp eyebrows as well, just to hone in on that sharp square shape. Now, on to my 5th rule with the round shape coming up. Always have fun and push the anatomy to extremes. Like, this one's probably not the best to show off, but the previous one, the square, I really pushed the anatomy to fit her design. With the circle, I shortened her face a lot and to really push how round she is, I wish I would have done a comb over and gave her a round hairline. But I decided to do a side part and I gave her a ponytail. You don't get to see the hair come out of the ponytail, so it just makes her face look extremely round. Some of the things that you can keep in mind is you could have done a really short style. You could give her a buzz cut, just to help emphasize the overall shape that you're trying to incorporate. With her, I gave her a smaller jaw, a smaller chin, and I also shortened her forehead. To bring out that round design, I actually didn't add any really angled features. Some people would like to add some dynamic shapes, but I was just being very basic and gave her rounded features across her whole design. So play with your exaggerations and let's move on. Now we are moving on to the last shape we're going to be talking about today, which is the heart shape. The final rule I have for you guys today is have a base knowledge of how anatomy works. Once you know how anatomy works, this allows you to know what you can change and how you can do that. For a heart shape, I chose to define her jaw and give her a little bit of more pointed chin, and I changed how the face flows. So what I did is the chin is the most narrow part of the face, and I kind of make it come in just like a heart would. And then at the top of her head, I made that the widest point, and I also kind of have it bellowing in at a widow's peak and at the part to give her a more heart-shaped face. I also gave her a larger forehead, and I gave her just some really pretty eyes. I didn't really do too much. I did incorporate some diamond earrings just because I wanted to add a contrasting shape to the heart. As you can see, there are many different shapes you can base your faces on. Always experiment with different shapes and lines to see which works best to your liking. If you need more help understanding how the face is structured and how the human anatomy works, then you can click this video here and I'll meet you over there.